So you're able to see my screen now, and we are with StratoDem Analytics. And we just want to start off by saying, when we think about the biggest drivers of the US economy, it's not all about Wall Street. The biggest asset classes aren't the stock market, they aren't the bond market. It's the nation's biggest asset class is actually real estate. Yet real estate is woefully behind in deploying data science and machine learning, but does that really matter? Well, we now know. Let's take a look at an example from two REITs. The share price for these two REITs traded nearly identically for most of 2019 when they both started deploying data science to fuel their investment decisions. One of them built their data science platform in-house, and one deploys StratoDem Analytics. Then a Morgan Stanley analyst ended up noticing and uncovering a huge strategic shift. And on a quarterly earnings call, that analyst praised our client for the enhanced data that made that shift a winning bet. And once the rest of Wall Street figured it out, the share price for our client jumped. Our client went from an almost identical share price performance with their competitor to a 26% market premium over their competitor. So what role does our data play in helping fuel more disciplined investment decisions and outcomes like that? For an industry that's all about local market insight, StratoDem Analytics delivers an entirely different league of hyperlocal economic, demographic, and performance analytics, helping clients uncover hidden alpha and helping clients identify risky positions to exit, which was actually a big piece of how that client clobbered their competitor. So now these cloud-based tools are embedded in some of the industry's most sophisticated firms, such as one of the nation's biggest healthcare REITs, one of the world's biggest home builders, one of the biggest managers of REIT assets, and the nation's largest manager of institutional real estate assets. We're also now expanding through partnerships, and the first partnership was just announced. So today we can share the news that Bloomberg will now be selling StratoDem Analytics data feeds to their client base, with more partnerships soon to roll out. So how did we get to this point? Two of us used to work together at a consulting firm that served top real estate investment and development organizations. And I used to think that this work that we did could never be automated because client needs were different, the data was unstructured, and the work required continual learning. Then it struck us, that's exactly what machine learning does. Then it struck me, my work would eventually be crushed by machines, so we built that machine. And we're now building out a management team and tech team to expand even further. But reflecting on this tumultuous year, the reality is 2020 upended everything for everyone. Many of our clients ended up cutting their budget, they cut vendors, they cut investment activity. But what's the one thing that they could not afford to cut? Well, we're ending up 2020 with a client retention rate of 100% every single client. We're StratoDem Analytics, and we hope to serve you as a client as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. That's really perfect. Thank you for this presentation. I will ask our jury members to come back and ask some questions to you. Can you unshare your screen, James?
Okay, I'll stop share. There we go.
Thank you very much. Jury members, do you have any question?
Hi, James. Thanks for being here. That was really exciting. As someone who has helped to deploy some data strategies within our own firm, I know that one of the challenges is getting to the hyper-local data at scale across all our markets. How are you approaching those types of relationships and balancing the, I imagine, kind of national or international presence you want to have with getting down to the level of granularity that's really impactful?
Okay, yes. So what we have is basically we end up releasing data on the demand side forces, the forces that shift demand for real estate. And we get it down to neighborhood level. The challenge is almost all the data out there, when we're trying to project how is real estate demand going to shift, most of that data is either high frequency and low granularity, which doesn't really help to get it, you don't get it down to neighborhood level, or high granularity and low frequency, so it's not current. Or actually most real estate data is low frequency and low granularity. The problem that we resolved is we figured out that there were about 200 data feeds out there, data sets out there, a lot of them government sources, but plagued with the issues of low frequency or low granularity. And we recognized that there are about 200 data sets that send off some kind of signal of local market change and change in real estate demand. The problem is none of them could really answer a full question, and all of them were plagued by those other issues. But what we've done is we've deconstructed the data provenance and data structure underneath each of those, so we can layer metadata layer on top. So for the first time ever, all that data interacts. So we can figure out, oh, the data you're looking for is actually comprised of these 7 things. So we can get data at a much more granular level than ever before, down to neighborhood level. We can get it and now cast it as of where it is today and have light years better forecasting accuracy as well too. That was the goal. That was the data problem our clients were trying to solve, is how do I get current information about the neighborhood that I'm looking at with higher forecasting accuracy. This is what Michael and I used to try to do manually. The machines do it way better because it can ingest and mesh and end up extrapolating or end up deriving data that didn't exist before. So now clients can actually make investment decisions off this data versus getting data to fill holes for underwriting and loan purposes. Oh, international, I will add. International, so far we've been doing this in the US domestically. We have been approached by a couple of the large international economic data firms who recognize that we have a platform to dramatically change what happens internationally as well too. So we'll soon likely have an announcement coming out for that. So stay tuned, because that's going to be a big game changer.
Awesome. Thanks, James.
Hey, James, thanks so far. Curious if you can say a bit more about your client onboarding process and what steps you take to help your clients integrate your insights into their decision-making processes.
This is a good question. This was actually a lot of our work over the last 2 years of installations with clients, is that we recognized that there were certain users within the firm that were super heavy users on the research and strategy team, but we were finding that they were trying to deploy this more on an enterprise-wide level. So over time, while we increased the level of sophistication of the back end, we've tried to make products that are even easier to use by non-analyst types. We have significant training and onboarding, which we found effective, because once they start using this, we have some clients that are on this a couple hours a week, every week, to try to uncover hidden alpha in places that they weren't, that didn't exist before. But we spend a lot of time up front getting them trained, help walking through use cases. And also for more of our advanced clients, because we have a configurable platform, we also do have the ability to do what we call semi-custom overlays, automation overlays. Basically, we can build out on the configurable platform within like days or hours, things that would have taken them months and months. And so that way it fits their workflow even better. And so that's in part what's made this process really sticky within the entities, is that we've learned how to fit within their workflows.
Thank you.
Jury members, we have a time for last question if you want.
I'd like to understand a little bit more about monetization. What you're doing, clearly you understand the solution, the product is really good, right? How do you scale this up across geographies, which is a question Ginny also asked you, but more from a monetization perspective, because scaling is not just having presence, it's also catering to different types of customers and different problems that they're facing. So how are you thinking about that?
Yes. So in terms of addressing different problems, that's actually a little bit easier for us because of the configurable nature of our platform. It's very easy for us to be able to roll out new products as we hear from our customers common issues, or if they're taking it to different departments. It's easy for us on the configurable platform to roll out a new module. We're rolling out new modules every month or every 2 months. So in terms of creating product market fit and matching needs, we can do that. The bigger challenge for us is that this is one big, hairy, ugly asset class. And so one of the things that we have determined in terms of rolling out is that, let's take international, for example. Part of our process in determining which partner we go with is distribution. They already have established sales forces internationally. We wouldn't try to mount a international sales force as an early stage venture ourselves. So that's what we're particularly excited about our distribution partnerships is. There are certain reasons why our product are able to create more value for their customers if they want to bring their customers. And so they've got the motivation to bring it to them, and they've got the distribution channels that we don't have as a smaller entity, but they do. That's a lot of how we're doing our rollout. And in those cases, there's typically revenue splits with the distribution partners.
Thank you very much, James.
Thanks.
And thank you very much to jury members.